Hi, aloha, and welcome to our podcast, Two Women Entrepreneurs. My name is Jennifer O'Neill, and my co host is Michelle Schneider. So, we wanted to do a podcast for you. Typically, I am known for doing a lot of spiritual podcasts, spiritual YouTube, teaching a lot as far as, I don't know, all things spiritual because I am a spiritual coach. Michelle, you are known for being Michelle the creator, but now you're going to be Michelle Business Genie. That being said, kind of what are you known for?
Yeah, so I've done design and marketing for a little over 15 years now. And I have been doing a lot of like one on one work with clients. So I have done a lot of in house marketing. So I've had experience for, large companies, small companies, startups, all kinds of things. And eventually I just got to a place where I was like, I want to start my own thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So then we ended up on a podcast, and that's we'll get into that, explaining why we're even doing the podcast. Because as we were talking before, it's not because me and Michelle have extra time on our hands. That is absolutely not why we started the podcast, because neither one of us have any time at all. I swear, it's ridiculous. Right? I mean, you're literally the only person who I know that works as much as I do. It's crazy, absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
So
the goal is to eventually not work
right.
as hard, but it is
That
kind of
yes,
like 7 days a week at the moment. I'm
yeah.
doing something every single day, so.
Well, and these are the kind of things that we wanted to share with you guys on what we do. What does being an entrepreneur look like in our lives? Because when I started a business, when you started a business, actually, I have several. I didn't ever find a place of like really. I wanted the juicy stuff. Like I wanted to know how long these people were working. And before we get into that, let's be clear, this is not just a woman's podcast. This is for um, anybody interested in working non-traditionally, not having a regular 9 to 5 career, interested in opening businesses, that type of thing, right? I mean, we don't want to shut anybody out. We're the women here. It's not that it's for women. We support men as well, being entrepreneurs and doing non-traditional stuff. And so I wanted to know, like, you go read everything is like, oh, I only work 4 hours and I make like a bazillion $1 million. And, I get to go on these trips with my family and I get to do all this stuff. And it's like, there's something missing there, because if that was entirely true, everybody would be doing it. And what I feel like is, of course, people can get to that point. However, they don't really, I guess, talk about all the stuff that they do prior to that point where you're building the foundation of your business. So I wanted to kind of share with other people, especially those who are spiritually awakening and empathic and a lot of sensitives, because I'm sorry, we're just not built to live the way that other people live, whether it be socially, work wise, or whatever. We have to live by different set of rules if we're going to be spiritually aligned and feel happy. And those who do not, they tend to get depressed, have anxiety, and that sort of thing. So while I'm teaching the spiritual coaching aspect, I also wanted to talk about the struggles with business and the successes with business, and how that a lot of people use manifestation and things like that into the day to day. I mean, I think that we're both along the same page, though, that you kind of wanted to share that as well, because I remember when you started out with business. And so we're going to talk about you. Me and you actually talked about you going into business for yourself. And I was like, oh my God, you're going to explode. But I remember the fear in your eyes when we talked about it, which is hilarious because you can't take any more clients right now. And
Yeah,
that wasn't even that long ago.
yeah,
So
my
let's
roster's
kind of
full.
start with your journey and how you became, a woman entrepreneur.
The one thing I'll also add here is the fact that I haven't been in the entrepreneur space very long. So compared to you, you've been doing this for several decades. Is that
Oh, yeah, yes,
yeah.
several decades. Thank you for the clarification on my age at this point, but yes, several decades. No, that's true. I come with decades of knowledge, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So like working for myself and starting my own business, that wasn't really even like an inkling in my mind. I would say until about 2017 is when I started having thoughts of I don't really like my job anymore. I don't understand why I don't like my job. And
Right.
there's got to be something better in life. And so that's really the year I started questioning everything.
Yes.
And then by the time I got to 2019, that was when I opened, or that's when I started my LLC because I didn't even really need to start the LLC at that point. But it was more so like, this is happening. And if I do this, this makes it real. So I didn't actually go out working for myself full time until April of 2021. So, in the grand scheme of things, I have had a very short run at entrepreneurship, but it's worked out well for me. Like, and I don't think that's a lot of people's experience or journey when
Right.
they're first starting out. So,
Well, and to clarify, you were in marketing the whole time. You
yes,
worked for a private jet company, you
yes.
worked for different people doing, marketing stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
not
I've
my
worked.
area, so I'm just like
Yeah, I've worked in professional sports. I've worked at like a global theater company.
right,
I have worked at a startup and then I went to the private jet company. So I've had a variety of different jobs. They were all in-house marketing situations. So I've never worked at an ad agency. So that's a very different experience. The in-house marketing is just very small teams and you tend to wear a lot of hats. So you tend to
right.
also pick up a lot of skills too.
So then you decided, and if I remember correctly, the universe started sort of pushing you out of your job
Yeah.
because you weren't really going that direction. So there was a little bit of help with, I think you should probably go on your own. Yeah.
Yeah. So to clarify, I also made this decision right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I had been like, 2020 is going to be my year. I'm going to go do my own thing. And then, of course, everything starts shutting down, and you realize, oh, wait a second, I can't actually just up and leave right now. But I will say, as weird as it may sound, the pandemic was actually kind of a great experience for me because I started hustling very hard. I started working on getting clients and kind of like amping things up so that by the time that 2021 came, I was ready to go out on my own.
Right. So then you kind of maneuvered into that. However, I think that the company that you were with kind of said, I think that you should like probably
Yeah,
do
I
something on
mean,
your own, correct? Because
my
we're going to be talking about like this is another thing. I have clients all the time that, the workplace can tell they're not loving it. Like their boss,
yeah.
their business, place of business, it starts to reflect within your energy. And so they can tell that you're ready to move on
Yeah.
usually before we can tell we're ready to move on.
And
And so
I totally agree with that because, like, I would have continued to drag my feet, had my boss who was great. I actually worked with him at 4 different companies over the course of 10 years. So, like, we had a pretty good relationship at that point, and I think he just kinda knew that my heart wasn't in it anymore, and so
right.
he was like he pretty much said, "At the end of March, you will be done." So, it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was getting fired per se, because I'm sure if I needed to fight back, I probably could have, but I knew that I needed to
Oh,
go.
no, I got my
Yeah.
own stories along those lines. So, I mean, not about I don't think that there was one about me getting fired necessarily, but laid off definitely. And or the universe deciding to throw some major wrenches into our plans. So, which I will talk about because I think that something you said is also very poignant. It's like, again, we sometimes get pushed in that direction because we and I see this all the time. We do not follow that our intuitive senses. It's very scary when it comes to security and money and having like things like, electricity and water. Like I like that stuff. So it can be very scary. And so then the universe has to gently nudge us along. So you just kind of have developed into your marketing aspect, and you then got extremely, I mean, in a short amount of time, you've gotten incredibly busy.
Yeah.
Well,
So the other thing that happened during the pandemic, I had a client who had a fitness studio and she was based, I mean, everybody was getting shut down at that point. And I kind of had this bright idea of like, well, you know what? I've never filmed anything or, before or edited videos, but I'm going to film your workouts. I'm going to edit the videos and then we're going to sell those online. So that was like the very first time that I actually used a camera. And so it kind of forced me into getting a new skill set. And once I started doing that kind of stuff for my clients, I was like, you know what? I could probably do this for myself, right? And
right.
so I started my YouTube channel. I want to say it was like June of 2021. So shortly, after I'd gone on my own full time, and that eventually started picking up traction. I really enjoy like teaching. So I do a lot of like tech tutorials online, and I
Oh, yeah,
feel
the tech tutorials are amazing, and I think it's interesting, though, how you and why you started doing those. So,
yeah.
you might
So
wanna talk about that a little bit.
actually, so it was more so to either A, help myself or B, help other clients. So a lot
Mhm.
of times clients would have questions and instead of like writing a novel in an email or trying to tell them over and over again, I was like, I'm just going to make a video and then you can just watch the video. And then it kind of just dawned on me like a lot of other people probably could use this information as well.
Right.
So that's why I tried to generalize them a little bit, put them on my YouTube channel, and then I remember the day when I was like, "Holy moly!" I was like, "There's 100 views on this thing," and then now, I mean, I've got some videos that are approaching like 100,000 views. So
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy, but
right.
because I love it so much, I want to actually take it to the next level and create a little bit more in-depth training, if you will, on marketing courses.
Well, and YouTube's the teaching place. So,
Yeah.
I've been on there for, I don't even know, 9 years or something ridiculous. But I didn't ever utilize it very much until recently, but I'll get into my story, when I talk about my background. So now you're doing the marketing stuff. She's ridiculously video savvy for not being savvy not very long ago. You have She has ridiculously good videos on things, and so that I think is very cool. But you in a very short amount of time got to a point where you're like, I cannot take on any more clients. Where did those clients come from?
Y It's so weird. Honestly, it would feel like when one opportunity ended, another one would just magically appear. So, a lot of it was, I would say, maybe 80% of my clients were referral based. So
Right.
it was either people that I've worked with in the past and they heard
Mhm.
that I was doing things on my own. And so they would reach out. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, that I've worked with over the past 15 years will reach out, and it's kind of crazy how it's like, oh gosh, you remember me. But there were other things that I did too. So I started getting involved in a networking group as well, for freelancers, and then was able to get a few clients from that as well.
Yeah. So a lot of yours is referral based. And I also want to point out, these are going to be future shows because we want to just give you a background, and we're going to be interviewing people. We will leave an email below if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast to do an interview. But the other aspect of why I kind of wanted to put this together is most of the people that I personally run into that have successful businesses, because we have the ups and downs. You're never going to not have ups and downs. If you have a weak stomach, being in business for yourself is not the place to be. It's just not. I mean, you will be so stressed out that you'll just be like, I can't do this anymore. But that being said, I feel like one of the things that I want to mention is you're very much into manifestation. Clearly, this is how we connected as well.
Mhm.
You're very into your spiritual alignment. There's things that you do as far as meditation, kind of getting your daily stuff lined out. But let's save that for another show, because I think that that is going to be a really good one when we're talking about the things that we do on a day to day to help grow our business, where I find that other people maybe they're frustrated or more stuck, and they're like, how do I get that next client? How do I get this next? I get that question all the time. So I think that that would be a good show about getting clients or things of that nature. But that will take a longer time.
Yeah.
So now you've been in business for a while, and I have one other question before I give my background, which is, we've talked about this before. Was this your dream job when you were younger? Did you did you love doing this type of work? Was this something that you always were like, "Wow, I love doing this"?
No, absolutely not. I know, that's so crazy. Growing up, I
Well, such a candid answer. No, that was totally not me.
No, I didn't really know where I was going, really, when I was younger. I was an artist. I could draw. Knew that I was talented in that aspect. So I kind of had an inkling that design was something that I wanted to do. And then
Mhm.
I have to credit my sister when she started trying to figure out what she wanted to do. She went into graphic design and I had no idea what that was, and so once I kind of learned that from her, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll see what that's all about." And so I did go and I got a degree for graphic design, so that's what my Bachelor of Fine Arts is in, and after that, I just knew that I needed a job to get money. That's all that I
Yeah.
really was
Yeah, I
focused
need
on.
money.
I just need to be able to survive.
Well, I
That's all
have
I
to
need.
say, on the flip side of that, where I do the readings and I do all that, that actually does fall right into the art. You are always artsy. So in my psychic brain, it falls right into that category. But um, when you opened your business, the first time that you started opening your, or entertaining the opening of your business, what do you think your goal was? I mean, it wasn't necessarily you were so passionate about it. Was it freedom? Was it time? Was it what do you think it was? Do you remember?
Well, I do remember. I would say that, I've been freelancing probably in the 10-year mark, maybe a little more now. I want to say 2013 is when I started freelancing. And really it was because I wasn't really getting paid a lot at the job. And so I was kind of feeling financial pressures there. And also was kind of going through a divorce at that point. And so I needed money. And I kind of thought, well, if I can get side jobs, then that's going to help take the pressure off. And so
Yeah.
that's really the honest reason of
Yeah.
why I started freelancing. I never envisioned that I would do it full time.
Mm.
And I don't really know, when that I think that just changed when I started getting super depressed in my jobs, and I was like, "This doesn't feel good anymore."
Well, I think that when you do get depressed, I think that people that are more in tune with their spirituality, they are depressed and anxious in 9 to 5 very structured workplaces. And that's something that I see over and over again. It's like when you get aligned with that and you're a sensitive person, and I know that you are because we've done the workshops together, or you've taken my workshop, and I know what your skills are. The regular 9 to 5, the regular in the box thinking does not suit us. And this is a hurdle that other people have. They just really have this hurdle of thinking they have to fit in the box. Everybody tells them, why are you going out of the box? Stay in your box. Don't move from the box. I'm comfortable with you there. So it gets really confusing for people who are like, yeah, but I'm not happy doing this. And
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do.
I would say I felt lost for several years because I
Mhm.
knew that it didn't feel right, and I couldn't understand why it didn't feel right. And I just kept telling myself this really stupid story though, that I couldn't own a business, or I couldn't start a business because I had no experience in
Right.
doing that. I didn't have a business degree. I didn't study that in college. So I had this story in my brain that that's not something I could do. And then one day I started looking around and I was like, if this idiot can start their own business and run it, I sure as heck can too. So I think just opening my eyes, it gave me the confidence to be like, you know what?
Whatever, yes, whatever does it.
We're gonna do this. Yeah.
And then you asked me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that being said, um, my background in business is a little bit different because, as you know, I run too many. First of all, but I definitely see the connection from when I was younger because ever since I was young, I used to go to the local candy store, buy candy, split it all up, and sell it separately. Like I would go around the house and I would find items and ask my parents, "Can I sell this? Can I sell this?" I would have my own rummage sales, which I don't think is safe to do at 7, but it was something that I purely enjoyed doing. Like I enjoyed taking products and reselling them. It was so weird. But I also have been a psychic my whole entire life. It's not this is something people always ask me, when did that happen? Like I got struck by lightning or something and then all of a sudden I had these skills, which people do say, and I'm like, no, I like don't know what it's like not to be like this. And so my dad and my brother and I was being trained in the Silva mind control. Somebody asked me about that the other day. Have you heard of it? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah. Have you ever done it? And I'm like, yeah, when I was like 5, because it was something I've always done. And so, that being said, when I got older, in my late teens and 20s, I was wanting to do readings. And that is a huge jump from just being psychic and intuitive. When you're reading somebody, that's a whole different ballgame. Those are entirely two different skill sets. So I spent a lot of time developing that. But meanwhile, I was trying to do anything. We looked at opening a restaurant, we looked at opening a gift store, we looked at buying a lot of different things, and just nothing seemed to pan out. Meanwhile, I'm developing my skill. I am raising kids and I am starting to go professional with my reading career. Now, that is a very, very hard thing to do. To get into the metaphysical industry and make money at it and or make a living at it, I've been in this industry for, well, Jesus, 30 years professionally. And I know, and this is the honest God truth. Out of my colleagues, out of the ones that are not on TV, I literally know one person that makes a living doing what I do besides myself. And that is really discouraging. And now I'm teaching other people through my spiritual boot camps how to develop this part of themselves, but also how to potentially own a metaphysical business and be able to support themselves with it. And I have the strong desire to be a mentor to them because somebody was a mentor to me. But fast forward, as I'm developing that career, I really wanted my husband. We opened a concrete business because that's what he did. And I was just like, if somebody's got one of us has to open a business, like, I don't know, like you try it. Let's do something. And that was very successful for probably 8 years. And then the 2008 housing crash hit. And when the 2008 housing crash hit, it hit the industry very, very hard. And it caused us to do two things. Now, this is a thing that we were kind of talking about when the universe is trying to push you a different direction. And in hindsight, I always look back to some of the most difficult times in my life and go, oh, I get it. That's why that had to happen. So I kind of have a different approach to even difficult situations when they come into my life. I always know that there's something that I'm supposed to pivot around or I'm supposed to take a different direction and I haven't been listening to what that is. So I see things differently when I come across a difficult situation. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck. It just means that it's become a very a very noticeable pattern when the universe is kind of trying to navigate you. And so we ended up filing bankruptcy, which was one of the hardest times of our marriage and our family's life, because we did very well for a long time. And now you're filing bankruptcy because of the housing crash, which was horrible. And a lot of people didn't talk about it then. And I was just like, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to hide the fact that we tried this business and then something failed, because, I don't think that helps anybody. And clearly they're going to notice we're not in concrete anymore. So that would be weird. But the other thing that happened was we moved to Hawaii. And when we moved to Hawaii, that changed really a ton of stuff for the kids and for me and my husband and my career. And that was a strong catalyst to shifting a lot of things in our life. So when I look back, I always find that interesting. Like, what if we would have, if the business never would have failed, or like we wouldn't have filed bankruptcy, we would probably be in the Midwest doing the same thing. I mean, we would have been content, just like you were saying. We wouldn't have made any shifts, and there's not growth. And then that doesn't get to where I'm in my happy place, because I was working for the concrete business. That was not necessarily my personal happy place. So we moved to Hawaii. And when I got to Hawaii, I'm still building my business, because back in the day before we moved to Hawaii, I am so old that we used to send out postcards. That's how I gained clients over the years of sending out postcards and doing talks and going to people's houses and doing all that whole 9 yards. We actually had to send things in the mail. By the time I come to Hawaii, the online stuff's getting pretty, pretty utilized as far as business goes. And I reached out to some local psychics, and I met with one who lived right down the street from me. She is become my very good friend, Geraldine. She'll be on the show at some point in time. And the coolest thing about that was she was making a living, and it was the first time I had met anybody in the metaphysical industry that made a living, paid their rent, paid their car payment, paid their light bill, bought food by being in the metaphysical industry, by being a healer, by being a psychic. And that was empowering to me in a way that I was like, oh, okay. All I needed was that one person. That's all I needed. One person that was not on TV, that seemed seemingly normal, to prove to me it could be done. And that was it. I ran with that like you would not believe. And when I ran with that, some of the things that happened was I started getting very frustrated with the metaphysical industry and a lot of the online stuff that's out there. And I was like, this is not right. They clearly don't know what astral travel is. They clearly don't know what sleep paralysis is. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. So, what I started doing is I started podcasting and I started blogging, and that was 14 years ago. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this. I started a Facebook group, didn't know what I was going to do with that. I just was like tired of wrong information being out there. So I did a lot of promoting and writing and doing some good, teaching to people to correct the wrong stuff that was out there. And during that time, I remember when I lived in the Midwest thinking, I want to write a book someday. And these are things that I think I would like people to know, because if it's something where you're out there thinking, I would like to do this someday, and I don't know how this is ever going to unfold for me. Like, do I have the knowledge? I didn't know what would I write a book about? And then all of a sudden my son's like, yeah, I think you're going to write several. And he's always very psychic when he was young. And I was like, yeah, but what about, like, I have no, really, like, do I even have like that amount of knowledge? Well, when I started writing, and blogging, I realized it was a book. I started, oh my God, this is a chapter. This is a chapter. And somebody reached out to me. And that was right when Amazon started their self-publishing platform. And when they reached out to me, they said, hey, yeah, I've written a book, and you should publish this. And I'm like, wait, how? What are you talking about? Long story short, they introduced me to self-publishing, explained how to do it. My first book was written, went online, and I made $600 that first month. And I was mind blown. I was like, wait a minute. There's something to this. Like, this is crazy to me. So every 2 weeks, I wrote another book until I had six. It was nuts. And so all of a sudden, I'm pulling in between 4 and 5 grand a month for years. I mean, years. And it was just the knowledge I had accumulated. It was trying, wanting to desperately teach people things that were accurate, things that I had experienced, and help them to develop. Because during that time in the metaphysical industry, too, like way back in the day, 30 years ago, nobody wanted to teach anybody. They didn't want them to, like, they didn't want you to develop. They wanted you not to develop. And I thought it was so weird. I'm like, why? And they didn't want the competition. It was really kind of well known in the industry. It was bizarre. And I thought, well, there's plenty of people. Why are we hiding how to develop? This is so ridiculous to me. So that's what a lot of my writing was. And so I helped people in that way. That led into a couple of different things. It led into a publishing company because my books were so successful. I had people emailing me going, "Hey, why don't you publish my book for me?" And I'm like, "I don't publish romance." And they're like, "Yeah, but just try it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And so this went on for a little while. And finally, they broke me down. And I'm like, "Okay, I will try one. Like this, we'll see if I can help you." And that turned into $1 million company. And that just took off. It just was right time, right place. And after that, I started doing classes as well. So now not only was I doing readings, then I had written books. Now I'm doing classes on top of that. And that just took off. I remember my first year, I made $100,000 in classes and in selling classes on top of everything. And I was just like, this is insane to me. Like, I'm loving this, but I don't have much time, but this is craziness. And then, as we fast forward, I should have probably stopped opening businesses. But then there was a time where I decided that my husband kept wanting to go back to the Midwest, see his parents. And I'm like, I don't really want to stay with family every time we're back there. Maybe we should do an Airbnb. Seriously, I don't know what I was thinking at this point. And of course, we couldn't just do one. We opened two, and that is another business that I opened. So now we have an Airbnb business on top of everything else, and that we get to stay in those. I do workshops out of those houses, and also we Airbnb them during the not cold months because nobody wants to go to the Midwest unless there's holidays or it's warm. So that is another business that I probably could have thought through, but I'm happy about it.
Okay,
So
tell me a bit about your jewelry store.
oh, oh my God, yes, I forgot about my jewelry store. See, everything I do, it's like my kids are like, "Mom, stop opening businesses." I'm like, I didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. So I did forget about that.
Well, it's funny because you
Between
call me all the time and be like, you talk about your next new adventure, and I'm like, "Okay, let's go."
No, it's so bad. Like I really need somebody to pull in the reins at this point. I in between the books and the classes, I opened a metaphysical jewelry store. Yes, it's true. I guess I'll put the link to that too. Actually, I have these earrings on today from the store, selenite, which I love. And a selenite necklace. I have to do a video on these because I'm doing a YouTube channel on my jewelry because, I have a lot of spare time. So, I actually got tired of people would email me consistently and be like, "Well, what stone should I wear for this? What stone should I wear for this? And what stone about new moon, full moon? I love life, hormone balance." And they would send me stuff and I would not like do all things on energy. I would not like the vibe of the stones. I would not like the vibe of the place. And I'd be like, "Gosh, there's got to be somewhere that you can get better feeling jewelry or stones or something that you can wear every day and it just feels better to your energy." And so I started sourcing them myself because I was like, okay, I don't like what everybody's finding. And so I'm going to source what I know is good energy and stones because they hold energy, right? And so that turned into Moonchild, my metaphysical jewelry store that I now sell a lot of things out of as well. So it's like when we get into our schedules, it's like packing on Mondays and Wednesdays. I have somebody coming in to do that while I'm doing YouTube videos, while I'm having my husband help manage the Airbnbs, while the kids are helping with the publishing company. It's just like a hot intertwined mess. So one thing led into another that led into another. And now we're on a podcast.
Yeah,
So
well, I will say the crazy thing to connect it all, your books is how I found you. So had you not wrote a book, then I
yeah.
probably would never have found you. So
That's
that
true. A lot of people have found me through the books, and or the podcast, which I always say I've been doing podcasting since before podcasting was cool. Like for real, I've been doing. And the funny thing is, when we talk about clients, is I wasn't necessarily doing when I did my metaphysical stuff. I wasn't necessarily doing it to get clients. The clients did come, as you said, like kind of with you. They just started coming, and I had referrals, and I was very busy. I still am very busy because then I started doing healings, and that's a whole nother thing. So maybe below it should be all Jennifer's businesses, and then we can just listen. But I started doing the podcast because I hated my voice. I absolutely could not stand my voice, and I did not like speaking in front of people. But when I would go do events, I got a lot of clients if I spoke in front of people. So I was trying to get comfortable speaking in front of people. I started doing YouTube because I hated the way I looked on camera. So I thought I'm going to get over this. I do not like it shouldn't matter how my hair looks or how I'm coming across or my energy, but I want to get better at how I look on camera. And so it was also a personal thing besides venting. I call it venting because I was like, I need to correct on this, or here's three actual reasons this happens. Here's what happens if you do this. So it was a combination of trying to get better at teaching in front of people, but also giving the information. And then the clients did just come, and the same with the books, the clients just came. So it wasn't like I opened a business, or like you open a business and then we just open the doors and then we nothing happened. It was very much, I would say, an effort without kind of realizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and with my situation, I think it was just kind of a gradual progression. It wasn't just like flip the switch, turn on the lights, here's success. You slowly built that over time, and by the time I was finally pushed to go full time, then I felt, I don't know, it just they magically just came, and then they
Yes.
just didn't stop coming, and so
Yes.
now we're in a real predicament.
Yes, we're in a predicament of needing more people, cloning ourselves at this point in time. And so I think that this will be a good podcast for you if you find that you're sensitive, you have any type of spiritual awakening, if you find that you are really interested in opening a business, you're afraid to open a business, or you're just getting into business, you're trying to figure out how to make some shifts or changes, or is there anybody else like me? Like, I was so relieved when me and you worked together after the workshop, and I realized you worked as much as I did because I was like, oh, thank God,
We're both
I'm
working.
not just like this weird freak of nature. Because that's another thing. I want to talk about all of these things of what we do day to day. And so if you're interested in that stuff, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you're liking the content, or comment below if you want us to cover certain subjects. Because I find that, you know what? I'm not entirely sure half my family knows what I do, number one. And I know for a fact that people in my life, unless you're very close to me, have zero idea of how much I work. Now, that being said, I'm sure a lot of people are like, why the heck would you open a business then? Okay, let's remember I have four. Number one, if I just had one business, that'd be different. Okay. Four was entirely my fault. So I'm not blaming that on anybody. But I do work a lot. And I think that that is something to show, but I enjoy it. I'm working for myself. I am getting to be creative. I can work from anywhere. I have freedom. If I don't want to go to work that day, I don't have to. If I want to try something new and go like, let's throw this at the wall and see if it sticks, I can. I don't have to answer to anybody. My biggest problem, which I think is your biggest problem, is I'm shorthanded. I don't, it's not that I don't have enough to put out there and I'm not really seeing enough come back in. It's really there's one of me, and it's sometimes hard, weirdly enough, if you're in an industry like we're in. It's hard to find good help, and it's
Yeah.
hard to find other people who can manage their time by working at home. And I think that that's one of our biggest challenges too, which we'll do another show on, is managing our time,
Yeah.
because it is really difficult when you're purely responsible for your own time management, you
Well,
know?
that and trust too. It's hard for me to find somebody, and I know I need to get over it, but like to trust somebody that they've got the same skill set, that they're not going to mess something up, that I can, comfortably hand over that control. It's like I'm
You
not,
do have to get over that because you can train them.
I know.
I mean, seriously, we just talked about this. We just talked about this today. I think you
Yeah.
really need to add more people, but you get to overlook their stuff. It's not like you're going to send them out all rogue.
I know, yeah, and it's gonna be interesting to see, like, where I'm at in even 6 months because I feel like just the way things that have gone have just progressed so quickly,
I
but I
know,
I
right?
really am in this, like, kind of transition phase at
Yeah.
this point in time because I'm wanting to kind of pump the brakes a little bit on the one-on-one client work and then find time somehow, some way to, produce these courses, which should be out early 2024. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. So interestingly, we're going to have documentation
Yeah.
of how you've progressed over for
I can
in
be
the
held
so
accountable.
we'll have to come back and rewatch this in 6 months and see where that's gone. Did you
Yeah.
actually choose somebody and train them? What happened there? Or God, did I open another business on accident? Like there's that too, because I do have some stuff in the works. So it's like, where does it end? But anyways, I hope that you enjoy this show. Me and Michelle have a lot to share with you on our tips, tricks, failures, successes, our mindset, our daily routine, what that we find helpful. But you're gonna find that there's a lot of things that I think that we have in common, but other people who are successful in their own right, not doing a 9 to 5, have in common too. And a lot of that is going to be thinking outside the box. And a lot of it is going to be spiritual alignment. It's going to be meditation. It's going to be being mindful. It's going to be a lot of those things. And it's funny because everybody's filled with fear and anxiety. And I find that even people who are filled with fear and anxiety, when it comes to opening their own business, they're like, yeah, screw it. Let's just try it anyways. Anyways, that's what I did. So is that good? Like, even I trained my students the other day, and you know this because I did this to you guys. But the other day, I was talking to one, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm going to get you to do these readings in this setting. And her eyes got all big. And I said, don't worry about it. I just shove you off the high dive. And there's water. Trust me, there's water at the bottom. I'm not going to leave you alone. And she's like, well, I hope not. I'm like, yeah, I know. But this is what everybody says. But you learn really quickly when I help you with this. So she was all traumatized, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So, if you again want to see more, definitely comment, like, subscribe, and we'll be back soon. Anything else in closing?
I don't think so. Yeah, I just look forward to seeing, how we can help people out there and see where this goes.
Right. All right. Have the most amazing day. Aloha. Bye.
Bye.